Yet the biggest part is taking accountability for your actions and not blaming the external world. So before we dive in, Heather, would you be so gracious to introduce yourself to myself and the listeners and let us know a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Myself to myself. I would love that. And yes, so my name is Heather, and I call myself a real life coach and a transformation facilitator. And the transformation facilitator came when I went to Sarasota last year, and I had a session with a channel, this gentleman I love who channels the collective. And I asked them what I was good at, and they said, that they first they told me they was really, really good at what I did. And I said, "Will you tell me what it is?" So one of my superpowers is helping people to transform. And I think part of that is the transformation of myself. So I did the things we were supposed to do. We were just talking. I went to Ottawa U. I got the degree. I became a CPA. I was a senior director of finance. I was working in corporate life. I had the external trappings that people would say were successful, and I was unhappy. And I quit my job. I mean, people thought it was like an instantaneous thing. It took me a little bit of deciding what to do, but I quit my job and I got divorced and I sold my house. I lived in Mississauga, and I said, "It's done. This is the wrong thing. It's done." And I transformed myself, and I actually went away to India for 3 months. And when I came back, yeah, I had started teaching yoga, opened my own yoga studio, because I felt like there was like there was a lot of cerebral, there's a lot of brain thinking when you're in a corporate world, but your body is suffering. And I felt like the body really needed to have some attention. I went back to school for 2 years. I became a massage therapist. I'm teaching yoga. I'm a personal trainer. I'm helping people with their physical wellness. I'm like, yeah, this is amazing. People knew what my previous job was. So I would have all these health and wellness people saying, "Heather, I got a letter from the government. I'm so scared." I'm like, "Well, let's open it and see what's inside." So, so I started business coaching for health and wellness because they were so sweet and they were trying to help people and they were struggling. I said, "Okay, now I've got it." Because I'm helping people with business. I got that skill. I'm helping people with their physical wellness. Yeah. And then the universe kicked me in the butt as hard as it could without permanent damage. And I had a stroke in 2021. And it's COVID. Nobody could come and visit me. I was in the ER for 3 days because there was no beds in the hospital and I couldn't see properly. So I couldn't do the thing that people do. I probably would have done myself, go to the phone and start scrolling to distract yourself. I just had to lay there. I tell people I had the gift of a 3 day silent retreat, and it was Halloween weekend. So the ER was a fascinating place to be an observer. And I just at one point said, "Okay, the doctors say I've had a stroke. They're probably pretty right. Okay, I'll trust them and I'll let them do their job and take care of me and stop arguing with them that it's impossible because do you know how healthy I am?" And and I said, "Okay, why am I here?" So I started paying attention. And what I realized was I was going in the right direction, but I was playing too small. So while I was there, dropped in my program, which I call the Thrive in Life method. And it's like helping people harmonize. Balance is not the word I use. I use harmonize on purpose. Yes, I was working on their physical health, and yes, their businesses, but we needed to talk about their emotional health and the community around them and their occupation and their financial health and their spiritual health. I said, okay, all the things. Got it. And while I was there, it was also my podcast was born that day, those 3 days, and it's called Back to Me, trying to help people understand that the current belief that it's better to be a martyr and sacrifice yourself than to take care of yourself so that you can take care of other people and other and ways to do it. And yeah, I always have fascinating conversations with people on my podcast. I talked to a sexual fantasy expert once. So cool. Such a cool conversation. Anyway, so that's what I do. I help people transform. I help people fit. I use real life coach on purpose because whatever solutions we explore together to help people, I want it to fit their real life as it is now because you don't need more overwhelm. You don't need more um, disruption. Your people are trying to find a way to come back to themselves, even if they don't call it that.
Mhm.
And I want to help them do that in an easy way. It doesn't have to be hard, right?
Yeah. We have a lot of similarities in our journey. So I'm looking forward to the dialogue that we're going to get into.
Yeah,
Before that, will you join me in a mindful moment so we
of
can ground
course.
ourselves and open ourselves even better?
Hmm.
For the listeners, as you always hear, safety first. If you are driving or need your visual, please do not close your eyes. Yet, all the other prompts you're able to do with whatever you're doing. So, Heather, I'll ask you to get comfortable in your seating. And if it's safe to do so, you're going to gently close your eyes. And you're going to begin breathing in and out through your nose. And you're not going to try and control your breath. You're just going to be aware of its rhythm, allowing it to guide you into your body. There may be some sensations or feelings coming up, and that's okay. You're safe to feel, you're safe to let go. Surrender the need to control, release the need to resist, and just be. Be with your breath, drop deeper into your body. Now, there may be some thoughts or to-do lists that have popped up in the mind, and that's okay. Gently bring your awareness back to your breath, creating space between the awareness and the thoughts, and dropping even deeper into the body, giving yourself permission to just be. Again, more thoughts may have popped up. Gently bring your awareness back to your breath, beginning again, creating even more space between the awareness and the thoughts, just surrendering into the body, just being. You may notice the rhythm of your breath has changed. You may notice or observe some different sensations or feelings in the body. And just stay with that breath. Now, at your own time and at your own pace, you're going to gently open your eyes while staying with your breath. How's your heart doing?
Fabulous. How's your heart doing?
It's curious.
Hmm.
There's been a lot in the past 5 months. Yet yesterday I went to a spa called Koina, which is hot and cold, so really getting you in the body. And there was a lot of insight and things that came up that allowed me to go further, deeper into myself and see it with clarity and feel those emotions and have better understanding of my behavior and the feelings and sensations. So thank you for the question.
Hmm.
Tell me about India. What had you go to India? Because that's not something anybody just jumps on and goes.
Right. So it was interesting. When I was still in corporate, always looking for ways to relieve stress. And I had taken a meditation class with a gentleman, and he had a degree in like a major in Hinduism and a minor in Christianity. Like he had gone to school for this. And so had taken these meditation classes, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty good. I was inconsistent at the time. And then a VP in my that I talked to a lot in the staff room, a friend of mine, he had started practicing Ashtanga yoga, and he said, "Oh, would you like a free pass for the studio I go to?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. I hear that's good for stress." So I started going. Oh, I'm a recovering overachiever. I started going to yoga 5 days a week because I was going to be the best damn yogi ever. And I was going to be the stress-free superwoman. And don't ever do that to yourself. Like, don't put those things on yourself that you have to be something. But I was doing that. Um, and I went for the stress, thinking, this is going to help me with my stress. And when I had my own yoga studio, I used to joke that people would come for the yoga butt and not realize that they were actually getting not the yoga butt, but way more dimensionally expanded things happening. So I was doing all of this yoga. And when I learn something and I get lit up by it, really, I was just born to teach people. I want to teach people. So I started searching around for a yoga teacher training. So I started taking a yoga teacher training on the weekends between my corporate job. And it was amazing. I loved it. It was taking me further and further down a path to what I was supposed to be doing. I didn't know it at the time. And I was working on this big project at work that was amalgamating some divisions. And I knew that when the project was finished, that the next step was going to be to step in to be the controller of the division. And I was talking to a colleague and I said, I don't want another promotion. And, and my now ex-husband, of course, he wanted to be a VP by 35. He said, and I said it to him as well. I was like, what do you mean you don't want another promotion? It just didn't compute for him. And I was like, look, yeah, you get recognition, you get all of this stuff, you get tighter handcuffs on your wrists, the golden handcuffs. But the price of that is my life
Mm.
and my time and my energy, and it's not worth it. So I place a value on my health, my wellness, my time, the things I want to do in life. And it doesn't even have to be curing cancer. What if I just want to sit by the ocean for half an hour? It's like that is valuable to me, more valuable than 12 hours at a desk. So there was a person in my yoga teacher training class who had been to India. So I was like deep into figuring out meditation and yoga, and I was all Ashtanga at the time. I've expanded my horizons since then. I'm still teaching 20 years later, and now I'm a mashup of everything I've ever learned. So people say, "What kind of style of yoga do you teach?" Heather style. And I knew this person had been to India. So I said, "Can we go for coffee? And can you tell me about India?" Because I was curious. And I had kind of felt like I felt kind of called to go. I was like, I feel like I'm going to go to India. I feel like I'm going to quit my job and go to India. And we went for coffee, and he brought a photo album with him. Do you remember those when we used to
Yeah,
print
I
photos
still have
out?
them. Yeah.
And he's showing me the pictures and he's telling me about it. And I told him what my plan was. I said, "Oh yeah, so I'm quitting my job and my house is I was getting divorced. My house is on the market and I'm selling my house and I'm just gonna go take off for a little while to India." So I wanted to know what to expect. And he's like, "Really?" He said, "I'm taking a leave of absence from my job and I'm going back." And it was like we were going at the same time. So we went together.
Mm.
And it was just like I felt like it was I had been to I'd been to Peru and I'd been to the European countries, but I'd never been anywhere that was so intense and so intense, but so open. I mean, it's hard to, unless you've been there, it's hard to describe the energy of the place. Like the contrast is so stark. And at one point, I'm sitting on the train. I'd only been there a few days. It took me a couple of weeks to really let my energy settle because it was so confronting in some ways. I'm sitting on the train and there's a man wearing a three-piece suit. There's a Nokia, I can see it very clearly, a Nokia ad behind him. He's on his cell phone, and next to him on the ground is a man with no legs begging. And I'm like, what? Like it was like my brain cells fused. It was like third world and first world living in the same container. And it was really hard for my, middle class Canadian brain to process it. And the more time I spent there, the more time I was like, these people are have a whole different view of the world, like an entirely different view. And not to glamorize it or anything, because it is hard there.
Mhm.
People sleeping on the streets and, the caste system. But what they value is very different. I mean, I was sitting in a family, we were staying with a family, and we were sitting around the stove. It was Diwali, so it was like November-ish, sitting around the stove, and they had killed a goat for us because we're guests. And I can't identify any of the parts of the goat in the stew, but it's all good. And they were asking us questions, and we're like, no, we don't have jobs, we don't have kids, we don't have a spouse, and they felt so bad for us. Like, and I'm thinking, my coat is worth more than this house. And wow, totally different perspective, right? And they value community so much. And I was sick at the time, and I didn't know this at first. Every time I left the house to go, the washroom was in a room out in a building out back. The ladies would follow me and sit at a distance because they wanted to make sure that I was okay. So they're all about caring for each other. Um, Although there is that caste, it's like, I guess, in your caste system, but it was just such a different place to explore. I stayed for 3 months, and I would have stayed longer, but I promised my grandmother I would come back for Christmas. You can't go against Grant. Sorry.
Yeah. What did you learn about yourself while you were there for 3 months?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I learned to it's interesting when you have that space to think, right? And that alone time. So I learned that I was a complete person. I always felt I'm like something was missing. Like, you're always searching, searching. This is something I was having a conversation with just last night. Humans are searching, searching, searching for something. And I made a comment that would we know if we found it because we don't know what we're looking for?
Exactly.
We don't stop the search. So I can remember I was in um uh Manali, was I in Manali at the time? I stepped off this curb and I just realized how comfortable and at ease I was. I'm like, wow, I just felt like I am a solid, full, developed, amazing person, human being, soul expression. And I don't need to be doing anything right now except just walking down the street, and that frees so much of that angst and that energy of the shoulding, the supposed to's, the trappings that we put on ourselves. Um, and I mean, it comes and goes because we still, when I came back to Canada, it was actually a bit disruptive. I was like, whoa, whoa, it's so bright. Everything is so shiny. It was so strange to go into the grocery store and feel traumatized by our grocery store. It comes like you integrate yourself where you are, but you still hold that memory
Mhm.
and you tap into that at those times when you're thinking, I feel small. I feel inadequate. I feel um, undeserving. I feel unvalued. And it's like, well, no, you have everything you need. It's that internal view that we often don't. Like when we did our mindfulness. So I've now been meditating for over 20 years, and I love that, like, check in with yourself. And the more you do it, the more you get to know yourself, and you can recognize, oh, there's that strong person. There is that strength. I don't need that person outside of me to give that to me because I'm already here.
Mhm. So, in hearing this, if you could give your younger self permission to do one thing, what would it be?
Stop being afraid to speak.
Mm.
So I was very shy as even into university in my 20s, somewhere in around 27. 27, by the way, is a huge age of shifting, right? 27 was when I left my first partner, who was a narcissist. And I still have the fridge magnet that says I am no longer afraid. When that was when I had to find my voice and my self-value to say this is not the right place for me,
Mhm.
and I need to do this for me because no one else is going to do it for me. And goes back to that ownership thing. I had to step up for myself, and part of that was finding my voice to say no and
Mhm.
to speak. And I still, I mean, even now, so I read Akashic records for myself and others. And every now and then when I'm talking to the record keepers, they're reminding me, yeah, you need to talk more, Heather. I'm like, okay, I'm on it.
Understood. So, going on that, what is one fear you were afraid other people would see, yet now you've owned it and you're
So
owning
yeah,
fully?
and it's so interesting because I was doing a little exercise this morning because it's still, even when you overcome a fear, the seeds are still there. They're just
Mhm.
not growing anymore, right?
Mhm.
So I have always had a fear that people would realize that I didn't know the answers. Because I'm the oldest of four children. Had responsibility thrust on me early. And just the way I grew up and the way I operate in the world is um, I'm not comfortable if I don't know. And that's a challenge. I mean, some people see it as, like, sometimes it comes out as a control freak needing to control a situation, but it doesn't always come out that way. Sometimes it comes out as I won't do something if I don't know
Mhm.
what's going to happen. And I can see it in myself. And I luckily I can see it in myself, and I will do a breath practice because you need to release that thing that's starting to try and drill its way into you
Yeah.
and go and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going back, you said the Akasha records.
Hmm.
Some of the listeners might be like, what was she talking
What
about?
the
What the heck
hell?
is that? I know what it is. Yet, could you
Yeah.
let the listeners know what that is?
Yeah, the Akashic records. Oh my gosh, I didn't know what they were a few years ago. And when I found out about them, I just went full, like I do, go full head on into it. And it is, so if we understand that we are all energy, and we were all connected at some point, right? It's like the energy was contained and then the energy went out, and are part of that energy. So in our 3D density, this is how I like to think of it. In our 3D density, this body can't possibly contain all that is me. This is just an expression that I've put into me right now. And in the energetic realms is the rest of me. And everything that ever was, ever could be, ever will be, all possibilities, everything everywhere all at once. So even though I'm here talking to you, there's a version of me who's I'm leaving for Portugal today, packing for Portugal. There's all of these versions, and they're all in the energy because it doesn't coalesce into form until you make a decision that it coalesces into form. And there's energetic beings who are in charge of I like to imagine it as a library because it helps me
Mhm.
frame it for myself. So there's a library of Heather, and then there's dudes. My dudes are hanging out at the door, and they're my record keepers. And when I drop into the right space and open my records, I can ask them questions. And the interesting thing about the record keepers, because some people see it as kind of like psychics, it's not really psychics because psychics, I don't know what energy stream they're tapping into. They're kind of tapping into timelines. This is just me. And they won't answer me if they don't think it's going to be helpful.
Hmm.
I'll ask them something and they'll just say straight up, yeah, you don't need to know that. And sometimes they talk like Yoda for me. So everybody's record keepers, because I'll read for other people as well. You get permission to open other people's records and their record keepers will answer questions for you. Everybody's record keepers have a slightly different energy. Mine are a bunch of comedians. And they sound like Yoda sometimes. Sometimes they sound like Dr. Seuss. And sometimes they'll give you the answer in a way that you don't understand until later.
Mm.
But interesting talking to them and asking them questions that are on my mind helps me feel like helps me drop into that trust place that it might feel like something's not going right now, but really it's it's all good. Like anytime something happens now and I start to feel that stress, I'm like, oh yeah, this is actually happening for a reason. This is supposed to happen. So just ride it out, right?
Hmm.
Recognize that I'm going to have emotions, but don't let them stay too long. Let them keep going.
Yeah. Speaking about emotions, you had mentioned, that is one of the things that is required in healing and real life, where a lot of people are cerebral, and it's the same practice that I educate people. A lot of people think their feelings, they don't actually feel their feelings, and emotions aren't to be analyzed when you're feeling them. They're only supposed to be felt and processed so that the information can come up. But if you're analyzing, you're suppressing and bypassing some of that embodiment that's needed. What does that process look like for you?
Can depend on what's happening. So, and it's true. I mean, if you think about like an emotion is because your body is intelligent, that's how it's going to speak to you, right? If it if it thinks something is dangerous for you, it's going to give you fear. And if it thinks something was, um, undesirable, sad, like all of these emotions that come. And I sometimes joke with people, I was like, we don't live in Pleasantville, so don't tell people not just to get over it and cheer up, because if we don't process it, especially as a yoga teacher, people tuck it away in their bodies. And when they start doing yoga, sometimes it comes out at the time they don't want it. So for me, I usually have like I've net what I do now, I didn't used to do. This is what I found to be the most effective is first you have to realize that you're having one, right? You're having something and not push it away.
Hmm.
Depending on what it is, and if there's people in the room, I might tell them just so they don't get any, um, they don't get into the range of what's going to come out.
Hmm.
Stay out of the line of fire. Um, and I actually will kind of talk to it because it's kind of like a meditation practice. Like, oh, hi there. Um, what's going on? Like, where did you come from? Why are you here? What have you got to tell me? And it's interesting because I noticed specifically yesterday, I was like, anxiety, what are you doing here? I haven't seen you in years. And it's a physical feeling that I have, which is why I recognize it. And I really have not seen it for years. I'm like, what are you doing here? And that's what I was talking about earlier. I'm going to Portugal today. I have never been, and I'm going alone. And I've rented a car. And
Mm.
my body is going, but you don't know what's going to happen. Even though I'm like, it's gonna be fine. I'll be fine. Everything's fine. no, what if something happens? I can hear like my grandmother is, what if something happens? Well, it'll be fine. You know, it's
Yeah.
like I feel like I'm jumping a little bit without a safety net. And I haven't done this kind of thing without a safety net for quite a while. And I had to pause and go, hello, what are you doing here? And do some breath work, and especially diaphragmatic, like letting all of that stuff move through. Don't let it grab a hold. Don't let it pull you into it. So, mm, really taking some time to talk to yourself about why it's there. So valuable.
Yeah. I think there's also because people don't know how to validate themselves, they don't know how to witness. So, of course, we're going to shut down and push it away because it's overwhelming, it's uncomfortable. And we've been taught, a lot of us, that whatever we're feeling isn't the feeling to be feeling right now. It should be something different than that. So, to allow
Right.
these authentic emotions to come up and recognize sometimes, it's unknown territory because you're allowing an emotion that you haven't ever felt. Yet you are recognizing too that certain body sensations lets me know, oh, here you are visiting again. I thought I got rid of you, yet there's no such thing.
Yeah.
It's always when they come knock at the door, are you going to let me in or are you going to slam the door and freak out and it's like, no, if you can allow it in and be in the space and recognize you can be in the space, but you're not taking over to hijack my behavior.
Yeah.
Yet
You
we're
don't get
taught
to drive the bus.
exactly. Yet you can be in the space of acknowledging it. And we haven't really been given that space of validation.
Well, even like if you have started observing people with that thought in mind of it's almost like they want us to be homogeneously happy, which is why I use Pleasantville. Little kids are upset. Don't cry. Big boys don't cry. I'm like, yeah, they do. It's like, let them cry. Oh my God. If they stuff it down, what's going to happen to them later? Or, little girls don't scream. Yeah, they do. And
Yeah.
if they don't, they'll become, I don't know, who knows? They'll become
Muted.
actress. Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll become the actress who's known for screaming. And it's just all of these things, if we don't allow them. And I had a client once who had a head injury, and it was so fascinating to talk to her because her brain started working differently. I could talk to her, and she talked about how one day she was angry and her fist was coming, and she was looking like the anger was in her fist, and she was looking at it. And she's like, who is this? And I'm like, you can have anger, but don't be angry. Like your
Hmm.
body was telling you that you had anger, but you didn't have to become
Hmm.
this embodiment of anger. And it was just so fascinating the way her brain worked. And we have the ability to do that. So I anxiety came to visit me and I let them in and I had a conversation with them. I gave them a coffee, but I asked them to leave.
Hmm.
We had a
Exactly.
conversation like, thank you for your concern. I'm
Hmm.
going anyway.
Yeah. So, a question.
Mm,
If your pain could speak, what would it say to you today?
pain? Mm, it doesn't use clean language.
That's fine.
Okay. Listen, bitch, get up off your ass and just get moving.
And were you always with a good relationship with pain?
Hmm. I don't know the answer to that. I don't. It's funny because I don't. When I think of pain in two different ways. I think of like physical pain. Physical pain and I are we're fine together. Like we hang out together. We accept each other.
Hmm.
I'm going to be 60 in a couple of years, and I don't think people need to have pain as they get old, but just the way my body's built, some things have started talking to me. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And I think emotional pain is the one that we hide the most. And um, the what that answer that they gave is because I think that we hide emotional pain, and my emotional pain is saying, stop hiding. Stop hiding the things that you don't want people to know about you and putting those that happiness face on. Even though most of the time I am happy, but deep down in everyone, there's something that they don't want people to know about them because of fear, like fear of being kicked off the island, fear of judgment, fear of then people will have a different idea of who I am
Mhm.
instead of what usually happens is people say, "Oh, thank goodness. I'm not the only one," right?
Exactly, exactly. It's what it is to be human and have a nervous system. Rather than chastise it, befriend it and ask, what are you trying to protect me from that you think that I don't
Right.
have the capacity to feel and experience? So
We're
in
wired so
that,
funny, right? We're
yeah,
wired so funny.
yeah, and it's just being able to look at it in a reverse way. Rather
Yeah.
than getting rid of something or becoming something else, it's about integration. And the integration requires you to feel. Yet we're taught in society not to feel pain, not to feel emotions, and just keep pushing through, cerebrally, academically, and just go. Like you're
We
not.
glorify the logic brain so much. I mean, I've been doing a lot of reading. It's like that logical, it's not men versus women, it's a masculine energy, where the feminine energy is the feeling energy and has been discounted for so long as inappropriate.
Mhm,
We don't like imagine if you're in the workplace and having a temper tantrum. Imagine if as an accountant. Actually, I did cry sometimes when I was an accountant, but I would go hide in the bathroom.
mhm. Yeah, of
You
course.
can't cry. You're at
No,
work. No crying at work.
no.
Like
Not at all. Not at all. You will be weaponized and vilified. Like, no, that
right.
is so unsafe. No.
Yeah.
So, what is one BS? And when I say BS, I mean belief systems that you once believed that you were able to release because you recognize it no longer serves you.
So because I spent 12 years with a narcissist, I had a belief for a long time that my value was only tied to that person, that I was not smart, that I was not attractive, that nobody else would want me. Like, and I mean, it's insidious and it would, and I started with that person at a time when I was still I was still a teenager. So you're in your developmental phases where you're so worried, like teenagers, they're trying to figure out who they are. And when you come through that, believing those things about yourself, that 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 takes some time to untangle those things, right? It takes some time to um, recognize that it's a small t truth, is what I call it. Yeah, you might have believed it is true, but there's too much evidence to the contrary, which is the logical side of it. But for me, I had to start with the logic to move into the feeling and the allowing of it to be true because I didn't know how else to get out of it, you know?
Mhm. Thank you for that vulnerability
Mm.
and that transparency. Speaking our own story, you have to, well, you don't have to yet. If you are really doing the work, you're going through seeing yourself and what that looked like with this awareness. And sometimes our present awareness wants to chastise the past awareness because you should have known better or you should have been this and it's like, no, it's really seeing that vulnerability of being able to integrate it all.
And I don't think of, like, I think sometimes about things that I thought when I was younger or things I did when I was younger. And you could give yourself a hard time, but that's like giving yourself a hard time for wearing your hair teased in the 80s. Like it was, you did what you could at the time
Yeah,
with what you
exactly.
knew. And it's funny, it's related to exercise, but I was doing this class this morning, and he said, if you're not challenging your stability, then you're not improving your stability. So I was doing balancing, and it's all about, if you can like be in a place where you're a little bit unsteady, then your steadiness just improves and improves. But you can't do that from the get-go. You have to like learn your way there. You
Mhm.
have to take step by step by step. So I look at myself now and sometimes I go, wow, if I knew what I knew back then, but I wouldn't be who I am now if I didn't have to go through all that bullshit that I went through.
Yeah. It's really rewiring what learning looks like. It's not about getting the A's and knowing it all. Learning means you have no idea what you're doing and you're figuring it out. And it's really uncomfortable to learn. Like it's
It is.
really challenging to learn. Like the grit that goes in the mind because the mind wants to know it everything because perfection feels like safety. Perfection
And
feels
that's been
secure.
my that like that was the thing that I that's the thing that I when it's going to show up, that's the thing that's going to show up for me still is no, you're the A student. You have to have all the answers and get the A's and be the best and don't make mistakes because then people will know you don't know everything.
Right? Yet the most powerful strength you could have is like acknowledging, I don't know,
Right?
and stand in that and feel all the winds and the whistles and just still stand firm. It's you're safe to not know in a
And
world
I
that wants all the answers.
yeah, I started practicing the I don't know. And I actually did it consciously because I realized, and the person that I went to India with, we're having our 20th anniversary this summer.
Nice.
But because of who he is, it was like he was sent to me. Because of who he is, I started practicing with him.
Hmm.
I don't know. And does he still like me? Like everything that I've learned and done and challenged over the past 20 years, and we are, he is still 100%, like he's like my teacher of how to be okay, not like developing. And it's just been amazing.
We started off the conversation talking about manifesting your
Mhm.
reality
Right.
and how if people really understood the ownership of that, they might be recognizing the work that goes into that. So, can you elaborate a little bit more on your perspective on this and what some people might be missing in this work?
Right. So we can go from 3D to quantum with this. So if you think, I'm always reminded of someone I knew who had read The Secret and said, I'm I'm visualizing my new home. I'm manifesting, and nothing ever happened. I said, well, it's not like you can't do something. You have to be a participant in this. So there has to be an action, and the action has to be taken by you. So if I want to um, decide that I need a different life, I could have visualized all I want that I wanted a different life when I was in corporate, but I had to stand up for myself, use my voice, and make something different happen, and trust that the actions that I was taking were going to help create the world that I was envisioning, right? But then you can go quantum and say, because people will say, you are basically you are God, if you want to use the G word, and you have created this entire thing to have an experience of yourself. And I have created NatNat and I've created podcasts and I've created the whole thing. And including the war, including the famine, including, you know, terrorism, including crazy politicians in the political system. And I was having a conversation last night on a 3D scale. We have difficulty taking ownership for our own lives as I'm thinking of someone in specific who complains constantly that this is not right and this is not right and this is not right. I'm like, well, then change it. But she won't like take ownership for her life. So if it's hard to take ownership for your life, you can't take ownership for the whole universe. You know, it's like start small. Start with you and start with your environment. If your environment is uncomfortable, you change it. And don't complain about how someone is treating you because you're giving them permission to treat you that way. Don't complain. We were complaining earlier about the government. Don't complain about the government because we created the government. If you want it to change, you have to do something.
Mhm.
And people will say, I'm too small, I'm too alone. No, you are not small. That's what we were talking about earlier. You are a big, powerful being, and you are here for a purpose, I believe. And not everybody's purpose has to be curing cancer. Some people's purposes are, I talk about a beautiful garden that I walk by. That woman, I'm pretty sure her purpose in life is to make that garden gorgeous because I stop in front of it every day, especially now spring's here, and just look at the flowers and it makes my heart so happy. And if that's her purpose in life, she's achieving it, right? It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
But people attach this need for it to be something huge and significant. And the word significant is so loaded because she's making a significant difference in my life, but it's not measurable in a monetary scale,
Hmm.
right? So we don't say it's significant. So I think manifesting and ownership is be be okay that wherever you are now is where you decided to be. Be okay that it may not be where you want to be, right? It may be like, holy shit, how did I get here? I don't like it. That's what happened with me when I was an accountant. How did I get here? I don't like it. So I decided to put on my, like say, my big girl pants and be the boss, be the CEO of my life, be the boss of my life and say, okay, I want something different. How am I going to do this? And not everybody is going to quit their job and leave the country, but even small changes can help you start to exercise, flex that muscle of ownership, of responsibility. And once you start to get stronger, you make those bigger decisions until you can actually look and say, okay, this is my life. This is how I like it. The city is okay. It's working okay. The country, well, let's make some changes in the country. The world, let's like my big fat hairy goal is to, I always joke with my mom, she is save the world. And I do it by tidal wave. I put drips in the water and they flow outwards and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And we'll,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. So I know the listeners are like, okay, where can I get a hold of Heather and where can I find her? So could you let the listeners know where they can find you and what you have to offer?
Yes. So everything is, it's easy to find because who wants to jump all over the planet? HeatherStewart.coach is where all the alls are. I have the podcast you can listen to, and actually starting in June, I'm going to be on the Inspired Choices Network. So I will be on 300 live TV stations and
Nice.
80 audio platforms. Oh my God. Talk about talking big. I really got to pull up to get up to that. And I have a free membership area, which is off social media, and there's no toxicity allowed in that area. It's a place where I have my free resources. You know, I have like some meditations, and I teach this yoga Tai Chi fusion class that I love teaching. And there's a quiz there. There's like a roadmap for, I teach the Thriving Life method. And then I have like a DIY space group coaching, VIP, like one-on-one coaching, but it's all housed. It's because it's easier to send people to heatherstewart.coach. And Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the alls.
Well, I want to thank you for it's already been almost an hour and it
So
feels,
fast, right?
yeah, it was very opening and inviting conversation. And one thing, that stood out is I want to thank you for the alchemy that you've done in your life. Taking those impurities, really seeing where you were and recognizing this isn't where I want to be. Also going through some health challenges and illnesses and still